Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining Professionals on the Grind, where we share honest self taught career advice with driven individuals. And today we have Felix Flores. Let's start off with you telling us where you're from and what your current position is.
Hey, Dana, thank you for having me. So I currently live in North Hollywood in the city of Los Angeles here in California, and my title is the Program Support Assistant, which is where I currently work at here at the Department of Veterans Affairs. So
Oh, that's amazing. So, I usually like to start off the conversation with a bit of background, right? So, I'd like to kind of pinpoint how you started your journey, and your journey always starts with your parents. Could you share what the highest level of education your parents received?
yeah, so the highest level of education that my parents had received was high school. After that, they do not have any college experience or anything like that.
Right. Same as mine. I think my dad only made it to middle school, and that's like most of our parents, right? So, did that influence your professional decision in any way?
Yes. Again, they came from a poverty, basically from a third world country,
Yeah.
being from first generation from El Salvador, born here. Because of them and having witnessed the poverty over there in El Salvador from all the visits that I had previously done, it did influence me to choose the proper path to better myself and as well as the future for my future kids, if I ever have any. But it just brought light, and at the same time, I can be a role model in a way
Right.
to my siblings, because being the oldest is
How
difficult.
many are you?
We're a total of three. Uh,
Oh,
I'm
very
the only
nice.
male, two younger sisters.
So you're gonna be bidding up a lot of guys. So
Yeah, right.
that's awesome. So did they stress the importance of college? Like, were your parents aware of the future, like a higher education, and how helpful were they during that process? Or were they just like, hey, go to college, that's what you need to do? What was that for you, that
Oh,
journey?
they push me every day. Every day they're grinding my butt. They basically they wanted me to pursue a future because they did not want to see me working like them, basically.
Yeah.
Um, Staying up late, arriving home late, not being able to spend much time with the family, having a set schedule, basically.
Right.
So again, they work their asses off for us and our future, basically.
I think
So
you said something so, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but you said something so beautiful. I don't think I've been able to find your phrase, and I think you just landed on it. Like, pursuing a future. I think my parents, they just pushed, they knew higher education was a better life for us, but they weren't necessarily helping us fill out FAFSA, helping us like, my mom knew what USC was, but only because, they're in the
they
communities.
just know the school, they just know the names and the titles and things like that, but they don't know the process and unfortunately.
Exactly, exactly. And even then, they were for them, it was only like lawyer or doctor.
Yes.
Like they were so mad when I chose business as my major. They're like, oh, why are you trying to do a business or whatever? But they don't understand, what that process is like. So it's, yeah, but you're right. They just know that that is the way to success, that we don't have to live a hard, difficult life, and our kids don't have to the American dream, right? We don't have to struggle the way we did when we were growing up. So um I kind of want to segue into your education now. What is your educational history, and what did you major in? Like, how did you select? Because we met at Casa Delay, for everyone listening. That is where Felix and I met.
Well, golden
How
report.
Yeah, exactly. Lit committee, here we are. How did you go about as an adult? Because as an 18-year-old, you don't have the help of your parents. You hear about Cal State's UC's privates, but what made you really solidify your answer with like, I'm going to Cal State, this is my major, and what was that process for you?
So it's a funny story because initially, right after high school, when I was applying to all these colleges and FAFSA, again, I want to thank North Hollywood High School first of all because they had
Okay.
college um, so
Prep.
college trio team basically, in
Okay.
which they assisted me and guided me to apply and to all these colleges as well as a FAFSA. But initially I wanted to go to community college. Why? Because again, being the firstborn, I didn't know much about college. But my parents are like, no, I don't want you to go to community college. I want you to go a 4 year straight out university. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? I initially only applied to two, Chico and Castellet. The reason being was because I wanted to get away from the valley, and at the same time because um, we had to pay for our college applications. So I
Yeah.
didn't qualify for the fee waiver, unfortunately.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. But once I figured out the school that I wanted to go to, which is LA, help my parents out as much as possible at the same time. But thankfully, because of them, they gave me the opportunity to go to a university. FAFSA was not offering me much money. So
Wow.
my parents literally dug out of the pockets to pay for my whole 5 years of education. So that's something that I'm indebted to them, and
Wow.
again, something that I don't regret doing.
No, that is amazing. If I didn't have FAFSA, my parents would not be able to afford college, right? Did both of your parents work? Were they both contributing to the household?
No, unfortunately, my mom was on unemployment due to being hurt from work, but my dad was the only one working. And again, he'd be getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning, wouldn't get home till midnight, and then again the next day, same cycle. And in which it hurt, but it motivated me at the same time to, it pushed me to complete everything.
No, of course. And you know what? I don't know how our parents who have little to no familiarity on education. My parents were like, "You're not going to a community college." I don't know why there was such a negative stigma around community college, especially in Latino communities, or like parents, they're just like, no, straight to a 4 year, straight to a 4 year. So it's so interesting that your parents also felt that. Again, I don't know where they heard it in the rumor mill, but somehow they found out. Same thing goes for us, right? Where they were just like, go to a 4 year university, look down at community college, but community college is great, everyone. Okay, please start there if you want. But I think that's an amazing story that not a lot of first generation Latinos, Hispanics get to experience, where your parents who are, come to this country as immigrants. I don't know what your parents did as a profession, but to send a kid to college with two other mouths to feed, that's intense, especially if you're sending money back, if you're traveling back and forth, a lot goes into that. I wanted to ask you, did you ever deal with any issues, in school, like, whether it was selecting a major, not knowing what to do with your career, getting on academic probation? How did you overcome them? And, you know, kind of share a little bit about that.
So when I started Cal State LA, I initially wanted to go in as nursing. So
Ah,
that was my goal. That was my goal. I was like, I want to be a
okay.
nurse. Like I'm gonna save people's lives and whatnot. Like all this blood, I can deal with it. This
Nurse Felix.
Yeah, exactly. But I managed to get into the stats class and I failed it. And I was like, all right, nursing isn't for me. And I was
Yeah.
like, what else did I want to do? It's like, what is it that I can do to help my community, serve my community? It was just like me representing my community, basically. And then from there, I went into, I changed my major to criminal justice. So from criminal justice, I was, kind of seeing the bigger picture and was like, well, what is it that law enforcement does? And again, they interact with civilians or, the community, save people lives. I know they have a bad reputation sometimes, but
Right.
in all honesty, it's not all bad. There's always those little bad apples, but majority of the time, they're pretty good. So that's what I ended up pursuing, in which now I'm I'm not even working within that field. It's more of a social services field, which is a complete opposite, but it
Right.
kind of
Because you're criminal justice, you're like, you're a cop, and you're not a cop.
well, like they're over here asking me for like, advice about the criminal justice system. I'm like, hold up, just because I have a degree doesn't mean like I know everything. So like I do
Right.
have education, but it's not as advanced as, others.
Did you go with the intention of becoming a cop? Like, and also because criminal justice, most people would associate with, you're pursuing a career in law enforcement, right? Was it the money or the community relation, like the passion for your community?
Initially, it was the passion to be with
Okay.
the community. It wasn't anything about the money. I didn't really think about that until like later on, once after I had graduated. I was like, maybe money is good,
I need money.
but not all good money is not all
Right.
money is good money basically. So
Right.
it's just like I needed to figure out what is something that I enjoy doing that makes me happy, no
Yeah.
matter.
Did you try to like become a cop? Did you submit the
Yes,
application?
I tried. I applied, but then after a while, I was like, no, like I didn't even continue pursuing it. Like I submitted the application, but after that, it was just like, no, this isn't something that I'm really
It's not for
feeling.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At
No,
first, I was all in. Like I said, at first I was all in, but after that, I was like, no.
and we're going to talk about pivoting and leveraging your career, though it's not in the field, because I think thousands of Americans or just people who have or higher education have to pivot every single day where you're not even working in the field that you went to school with, but you make it work, right? So I
Exactly.
think it's fantastic. And, to add to your comment on police officers, right? There are bad apples, but also be the change you want to see. If you want to be a good cop, become a cop and do good by your community. That's all you have to do. And so, don't give us tickets if you see us out there on the streets. I'm just kidding. So, I did want to ask you in this point in your life, would you consider getting a master's? Is that something that you are thinking about? Have you started applying? Are you in a master's program?
It's funny that you talk about that because I've actually been thinking about it this year alone. Like
Okay.
I was one of my friends was actually talking to me and was like, "Oh, I want to go back to nursing school and this and that." I was like, "Why don't you? Are you going to go back into your education?" I was like, "I'm not too sure, but I do want to." And then I kind of started looking back into everything that I've done
Right.
from my previous jobs to where I'm at now. I was like, social work. Social work is something that I'm doing already. I'm in the field, so why not pursue a degree in it? So I'm
I love it.
hoping to eventually, um, probably by the end of this year, apply to CSUN for.
Woo, go Matadors. That's me. I'm graduating this summer. You know what? Listen, Felix, this was my defining factor to pursue it. You don't have kids. You're not married. You don't have anyone to, like, 'cause when you are a full time employee and you go to school, it fully absorbs your life. Like, you don't have time for anything. And I could not imagine having a kid and going to school right now. To everyone pursuing, they're doing it all at once. Kids,
Kudos to
career,
them.
school. It's tough. I barely have time for my dog, but they're not going to call CPS on me because I'm studying and my dog's at home. So all in all, especially if you know what you want to do and you took that pivot, right? I think what a lot of people don't understand about their masters, it can work for you based off of where you're at. So if you are one of those individuals who ended up working outside of your, major, your master's is going to identify your career more than your undergrad is. Your undergrad essentially just tells employers, oh, they have their degree, they were able to do it great. But now as your master's and as you're applying to these executive, director positions, you're checking off that box. And if you know that's your passion, that's your field, boom. I'm excited for you. And let me just say this, okay? And I tell everyone gets into their master's program. Even if you have a low GPA, I've seen people get into USC, and I'm like, you got into USC?
Yeah,
You know
but I'm
why?
not paying
They
300.
let anybody in. They let everyone in. So that's all I'm gonna say. No shade to anyone. They want your money. So apply. Well, congratulations. It's a big step. And I'm excited for you. So that'll be very awesome for you. Do you have any advice for people? I mean, I guess the question is, um, as a full-time employee, what advice would you give, or what are you doing to prepare yourself to take on that master's program? And like, what are you going to do for your schedule? Like, what does that prep look like for you?
So I've actually spoken to my supervisor, or my boss, basically, and I'm kind of like mentally preparing them, like, hey, like I know once I get into the master's program, like, because I was reading the description and everything, like, gotta work maybe like 8 hours or 16 hours throughout the week. So that's basically like what, 2 business days and whatnot.
Yeah.
How is it that we can fit my work schedule and my school schedule together? That way I'm not missing anything. As I like, and they understand and they want me to continue pursuing my education. So they don't want me to stay where I'm at now. They want me to grow basically. So they understand and just talk to your supervisor, see what it is, a plan that you can work out. Like I tell my sisters, I'm like, hey, look, if you guys want to continue pursuing your career, make time for it. But let that be your main focus too. As like work
Yeah.
can wait because you're so can your education. But if you want to grow at a young age, continue pursuing your education earlier than later.
I 1000% agree. Let me tell you, Felix, personal advice. It is so okay. Once you've experienced your life of just being a career person, reverting back to academia, oh, that was the hardest thing in life. Like, I'm like, I was at a bar last week. Now I'm here studying. Like, what do you mean I can't go to a Dodger game on a Thursday? Like, so just be prepared for that. To end our education segment, or like, the questions that I'm going to ask you about your education, what would you do different in college, knowing what you know now being out in the workforce? Would you change anything?
That's a great question. I don't think I'd change anything, to be honest. The college experience that I gone through went through, it was something memorable, and all the friends, the bonds that you make, just continue building your bridges, communicating with anybody basically, talking with the stranger that's right next to you at a bus stop or something, because eventually in the long road they'll end up helping you, like maybe pursue a career in something, or like lend a helping hand to get you in a job. So anything could happen, but I wouldn't change anything.
Good. No, that's fantastic. I think, yeah, the networking, I would probably make an effort to friends with everyone on campus. Like, everyone's going to know my name at the end of these 4 years, right? So that's the biggest takeaway there. So to pivot a little bit, being a Latino with immigrant parents, you understand that there is no career help or guidance from them, right? So how did you research or search for mentors or guidance when you were beginning your career? Like, who were you asking questions to?
So, well, there was literally no one, not even my cousins, like my uncles, no one from my family that had any education. It wasn't up until I was in high school that I managed to be a part of this college bound program. It was called Educational Talent Search, ETS for short. And there's another program called Upward Bound. And I was able to enter a ETS in which they opened my eyes with different colleges basically. We went on field trips to like UC Irvine, UC Riverside, up in Northern California, San Francisco, the Banana Slug, Santa Cruz, basically. It opened my eyes to different colleges and the fields that they they focus on. So if it wasn't for them, I'll be honest with you, I probably wouldn't have even met you. It's like I wouldn't be
Yeah.
where I am now. But thanks to them, and their resources, I'm able to be where I am now. Um, One thing that I would recommend to many is look into the college center at your high school, and talk to them, see what programs they have available for them. Start it as soon as you're a freshman, because that's the best time to do it. Again, the older you get, it's kind of more difficult to get into. So,
I think it's so, because we're the same age, right? But I have siblings that are older than you. So it is so interesting to hear the perspective of the eldest child, because you essentially are the mentor to the rest of your siblings. You have to figure it out all by yourself, and not being ignorant that I thought there weren't like any older, siblings that weren't 40 or 36 or 30, whatever. But hearing you sort of give your testimony, right? Because your experience, you're 30, right? Like, it's happening every single day. That first kid in the Hispanic household, in the Latino household, you have to navigate, you have to ask those questions, you have to figure it out. And if you want a future, ask everyone and anyone, and that's it, right? My favorite saying is, you're already at a no. The worst thing I can say is no. Ask the questions. So I do want to kind of touch base on your resume, because you do have a very cohesive career within your field, right? And your field of social work. So that is very exciting. I do want to start with your volunteer crisis responder uh, work, right? So you volunteered in high school or in college? What is this?
No, I volunteer in college. So I
In
had been
college.
trying to get into it for a while, but
What is
they
it? Let's talk. What is it? What is it exactly?
so we provide resources to the family. So at the time of so it's sad because the moment we're called out because there's a death. So we'll arrive to the scene, either by Los Angeles Fire Department that will request our assistance, or LAPD. And when we arrive on scene, of course, we find the families very distraught.
Right,
Unfortunately, their loved ones passed away right in front of them, or we let them know the cause of their death. But we partner with uh, the police department as well as the fire department to assist these families during this process. Again, um, we don't really know the steps of what's to come after someone has passed away.
right.
So by having me present there, I'm giving them that guiding hand, like, hey, look, I'm
Mm,
sorry for your loss, but unfortunately, this is what you're going to be expecting next. We kind of guide them down what they're going to be feeling, emotions, the support system that they have, and if they don't have it, how they can find it, maybe psychologists that they might want to speak to, schools that will reach out to if they have any younger kids that are in high school, middle school, elementary, so that they can see a psychologist at their school to give them that assistance, because it's not easy trauma for these younglings to go through, because at the end of the day, it can affect them in the long term run.
right,
Um, and then from there, we'll as well guide them or inform them about the coroner, which is something that no one wants to hear about. The
right,
coroner will come up to them and, tell them, like, I'm sorry for your loss. Um, these are the remaining of the belongings that we found on your loved one. Here you go. And then they'll kind of tell them, like, the process of when when they can have their loved ones back, um, who they can contact, the mortuary basically, who they can contact. That way they can move their loved ones to the mortuary and proceed from there to, do what
right.
it is that they got to do with their loved one. So
So you were the second person in my friend group, and I didn't know you volunteered, right? So to me, volunteering is something so special because people don't do it. And you're someone that volunteered from 2014 to now. You did this in college. You're doing this as you're moving up, or bouncing around job to job, or like getting in your career synergetic path, right? What keeps you motivated to volunteer? Why do you volunteer? And the only comment before I end that is, I see this volunteer position as a merge of your original intent to become a nurse combined with your criminal justice major. So that is so fascinating to see in this form. But why do you volunteer?
I didn't even think about it that way. You put
Yeah,
it in great perspective right there.
yeah,
Um, but I do it because I enjoy it. I'll be honest with you. I just enjoy, again, helping the individuals that don't know much, and a majority of the call outs that I've been to are Lat Latin race, and they're first generation, well, they're not even first generation, but they just migrated over here, and
yeah,
again, they don't know the resources, the help that's available to them. So by me being there for them, I'm able to open up these doors for them, basically these resources, who they can contact, what they need to do, the whole process. And at the end of the day, it's like even though they're going through a very difficult time, it's that gratitude, that feeling of
Yeah,
like, thank you. Like even though they can't really say it at the moment, but you feel it and you see it in their eyes, like, thank you for everything. Like we really appreciate you because if we didn't have you here at the moment, I don't know what I would have been able to do.
right. No,
So
I think people who haven't experienced death don't realize how crippling it is. The last thing you're thinking about is the number of the morgue. The last thing you're thinking about is, writing down the number of the police officer, things like that, as you're grieving, I didn't even know this was a opportunity to volunteer in. So it's fascinating that you found it. You're still doing it. You have so much passion for it, and it's weirdly enough a merge of everything that you're encompassing, because technically it is social work, right? I'm sure there are people that do need other kinds of services that you can then provide or give them that contact to. So as you're volunteering and you're beginning your career, you start working as a residential counselor, then a case manager, then a health technician. Those are three very different jumps. Could you kind of explain each role, what you learned, and why you jumped so drastically to a different, same realm, but different position?
well, one, it's growth. So like again,
Yes,
we all want to grow. We all want to, pursue more money at that point.
of
If you want to put it that way. But
course.
at the same time, I want to learn new things. I'm always up to learning. And starting off as a residential counselor, we're basically like tutors, mentors, I guess you could say, to young individual youth that are part of the system, DCFS, as well as juveniles that have been detained, and kind of like guiding them down the right path. Like, hey, like try not to mess up because if you do, these are these these are things that might happen if you continue going down this path. So we
Right,
kind of try to guide them down the right path. We don't want to see them fail, because of I don't know. I can't say maybe it is a system, maybe it isn't the system, but we don't. It hurts my heart to see these young individuals that are just starting their life, go down the wrong path.
right.
I hate to see, I don't know, my younger sisters go down that path and like, and I'm not able to help and fix that path. But again, just being that guidance counselor to them was more than enough. Even though, I mean, don't get me wrong, some were a headache, and I was like, oh, I think I'm gonna go bald pretty soon at such a young age.
Yeah.
But that's what kept me there for a while. But then after that, there was an opportunity to help young homeless adults within the same company. So I applied to that position, and it was right before COVID too. So it was even better because if not, I think I would have gone insane living within the group homes basically.
Right.
So from there, I became what was it a case manager, and we all get our caseloads, just starting trying to figure out what it is that we need to do, who we need to reach out to, but many of these young homeless adults didn't really know how to prepare for life. Sadly, some might have lost their parents at a young age. They've lived in the system their whole lives. Some might have gotten kicked out. Some are drug users at such a young age too, which is very sad and depressing. But by us being there to shelter them and assisting them, lending them a hand to receive their social securities, birth certificates, preparing them for job interviews, applying for jobs, helping them out with resumes, we're already preparing them in the slightest little way possible for the big world. And again, it's something that I enjoyed.
So I want to ask you something, because from a lot of, sociology majors that I have known, they get into the field and it is emotionally taxing. As someone who you started your career with, youth, and that is a very challenging age range. You're dealing with hormones, you're dealing with all sorts of issues, problems, how did you, remain mentally strong? Because you worked here for essentially what, 3 years? Like, how did you maintain that sanity to help and really just, this is what I want to do. I want to help people. What was your mental, like, what did you do to help yourself mentally?
I drank my problems away. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, if it's the truth, it's the truth.
No, no. Um, I played sports on the weekends, just spending time with the family. Um,
You didn't take
just
work home.
no, I that's one thing that I tried to do. I wasn't trying to take work home because at the end of the day, I already knew that it would, mentally drain me at the end of the day. And that's
Right,
not something I was trying to do. And because if I did, I'd burn out real quick.
right. And
And
as someone who, because is this a nonprofit or is it a government? It's a nonprofit, right?
no, it's a nonprofit.
So, how did you negotiate your salary within the same company? Because we've all worked for nonprofits or we've encountered nonprofits, they don't have money, right? So, did you ask someone, like, hey, how do I negotiate more money? Did they just give you a number that you were comfortable with? What was that first, like, realization that now you're going to boost in salary?
So when I initially started, they already had their pay scales. Like even if you had a college degree, this is what you're going to be starting off at.
Okay.
Eventually, over time, after that year, they said, "Hey, if you have any experience, as a tutor, educator, things like that, um, let us know. That way, we can, adjust your pay." So I had
Mhm.
previous experience working um, with youth, again, helping them apply to college, FAFSA. I was a tutor basically way before I even got this position. So I put all of that in information and sent it to HR, and they were able to give me like I don't know an additional 75 cents, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Eventually, after that year, somehow they managed to give us another like $2 raise.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, like I don't really have to negotiate from there.
Yeah.
Um, and then from there, I ended up with the case manager position. That was another high paying wage, and which I did try to negotiate with them, but they weren't really budging because
Right.
again, they want to keep you at a steady pay scale, basically wage. There you go.
So you weren't nervous to ask for more money. You were
No,
like, I'm gonna ask for more money.
it doesn't hurt to ask. Again, sometimes they'll say no, but if you can, um, justify as to why it is that you deserve that pay, then go for it.
So you then jump to a health technician. Is this something in your field? Was it that you were done working with youth? What did that career shift? Uh,
Um,
why
so
did you do it?
my friend had told me about that position. He's like, "Hey, like, why don't you apply to these position? There's openings." And I'm like, "What is it that you do?" And he's all like, "It's kind of like the same thing that you do here at Penny Lane." And I was like, "Okay," but he's like, "But with adults." So I was like, "All right, whatever. Let me give it a shot," because you're like, look, it's a great opportunity at the same time because it's a government job. It's like it's secure. If anything happens, then you're not gonna lose your job. Unlike here,
Right.
there's always a possibility that you might be laid off. And I was like, all right, let me give it a shot. I'm like, I don't know if I'll qualify, but I'll give it a shot.
Now
And
hold on. Is this friend a colleague or a friend that you met through work? What was that? And was it that you were talking about you being tired of the job? Like, what was that?
we're kind of being burnt out already as it was because
Okay.
again, we're just working long hours, helping everyone.
So your colleagues at this
Yeah, my
point.
colleagues basically.
Okay.
Again, building your connections with one another because at the end of the day, you don't know where they're gonna end up and whether they can help you out. Shoot, for all I know, maybe you might get me a job later on too, Dan.
I will. Okay.
So, yeah, he started off as a contractor basically. He wasn't like a full VA employee. But once he completed his year and they're like, all right, we need to hire individuals, he applied again and he got it on the spot. And that's when he had informed us about it. And I started applying, and surely enough, within 3 to 4 months, I was in. So now the way I put it, as a health technician, I sit adults, because it's kind of the same thing as the group home, but for veterans. And it's like people who have served for our country.
Wow. Yeah,
Um, and it's something meaningful at the same time, because I have many cousins that have served, and I do have one that has gone to Iraq
right.
and he saw many of his friends pass away, unfortunately. So by being where I'm at now, it's kind of like giving back to him and his community, and
That's
which
beautiful, Felix.
I love.
I love that. No, it's Veterans Affairs, so that's amazing that you do get to work with a community that is, in need of a lot of help. And to have a government job and truly have someone that has a passion to want to give back to their community, and they want to do the social work, they want to do the community engagement. It's very nice to see people who just aren't doing it for the paycheck, because that happens. It's like, oh, VA government job, I'm set. No, it's like you're there to help people, please. And so that's really nice. So I see that you also had some sort of either job shift or promotion. How did you pivot to that within the same organization?
So the health technician, it's funny because it falls under nursing. The health
Nine.
technician falls
I'll
under
probably
nursing.
back to you being a
Oh,
nurse, Felix.
yes, I started off trying to get into nursing, went into criminal justice, and somehow ended up working under the nursing field, as you call it.
Yeah.
But with this new position that I got, it's more of a lateral movement. Same pay, same everything. It's just now I'm under mental health, and I'm under the administrative part. So I'll just be assisting with work orders, things that need to be
Why'd you
completed.
make that shift though? That something within yourself said, I need to shift.
I was already kind of getting burnt out of where I was at, because sad to say, but I was experiencing a lot of racism,
Mm,
and that kind of pushed me to a point where I was just like, why should I be continue working in a field, a hostile field, when I
right.
can move to something else?
You can
So
still
now,
help, just in a different capacity.
correct. So now I'm in the back working in the desk, but veterans will still come see me asking for help. Even my fellow coworkers will continue asking me, even though I'm not working alongside them, like, hey, how do you do this? Hey, how do you do that? Because I was more of a hands on, social, interactive, always trying to learn something new, things that I didn't even know. I figured out on my own. And then they're like, how'd you do that? I was like, it's easy. You just got to do this. And they're like, I never even thought of that. It just made everybody's life easier.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes you do have to make a lateral move in order to understand where your career, or to help your career develop into something, right? And I learned this from a colleague, and I'll always quote him, Sam. Shout out to Sam. He's like, every job you take that you hate is just teaching you what you're never going to do again. And you don't have to hate it. You can just say, this isn't for me. And in this case, it's the same thing. And you don't have to leave an organization to, still help within that same realm. Or, maybe through those VA connections, the VA is such a wide range of resources and organizations that help vets. Just being in the door gives you that flexibility to maneuver wherever you'd like. So I want to ask you this. Where you are today, what do you consider the most valuable in your career, your education or your experience?
I want to say my experience at the moment, because it's just everything correlates to one another. As
Right.
in, like, I can't get a job in plumbing because all I know is socializing with individuals, giving them that lending hand, and no disrespect to harming, but I'm just behind the desk, not burning my back. Um, so Yeah.
So you know why I want to ask this? Because I think when we were going to college, we were sold this college education, you're going to get a job. When we got into the field, experience and education experience outweighs your education, because guess what, you apply to jobs and they're asking for 5, 10, 15 years experience, and you're like, I just graduated college. But then the people with experience hit a ceiling. You don't have an education, so then those 5 years that we've been working from the bottom, we then get to surpass them. So it's a double-edged sword on both ends. But if you can, get your education at any point, but also be strategic. Some people don't have to get a master's in certain fields. So be aware of what your field or what you want to do is asking. Because don't get in debt for 40, 100 grads if you don't need to, right? I think there was a professor at Castle, she was a law professor. She said, don't get into debt for grad school if the highest range in the salary in the field that you're working with can't pay that in 1 year. And I was like, I was like, all right, then. Yeah. Wise words there, woman. And that really changed my perspective as to why I then applied to CSUN and not USC or not Stanford, or an Ivy League, where it's like, yeah, it'd be amazing, cool. But for public admin or even, community relations, I don't need to go to an Ivy. I can get the education, boom, knock it out, all is well, right? So that's interesting to even hear you talk about your career, because it does seem like your experience got you the pay raise, got you more opportunities. So that was very cool. I wanted to ask you if you have noticed any changes in your industry since you started. And you might have froze. Am I just talking? Felix, did we lose you a little bit? Felix, I think we lost Felix. Let me text him really quickly and see. Let me remove him one moment and let me add him back. Ay, ay, ay. All right. Here we go. All right, here we go. He's
Sorry.
back, everyone. Sorry, I was rambling on and you were frozen. So, all in all, my next question to you is, how has the industry changed since you've started? And I know you've had the industry of social work, giving back. Do you feel like people who are in these positions, they truly have an altruistic reason to be there, or at this point, people just need to live and are applying to jobs?
No, they have the reason as to why they pursued the goal that, the field that they're in. Um, After speaking with a bunch of social workers that I work alongside, it's coming from their heart. It's like they literally wanted to enter this field for that specific reason, and they just enjoy it. And again, after I talked to them about what I wanted to pursue, they're like, "Oh my gosh, like, go for it. Like, it'll benefit you in the long run. You're not gonna hate it. I mean, you'll have these, certain individuals that might stress you out, but
Right.
overall, if you truly mean the help to want to help them, then this is the field to go to." So,
That's awesome. I love that. And what skills have you found vital to your job or to any of the positions that you've held?
patience,
Mhm.
communication, um, you know,
Kindness. You have to be kind.
yes, kind listening is like one of the most important thing, because here at the VA, most of these vets just want to be heard. Like, some don't have anybody to talk to, or they're
Yeah.
just so many issues that go on that they don't really have anyone to talk to, or people don't want to hear them. So, just listening to them is more than enough help to them.
Right. No, I love that. And, working for a government entity and working with vets, like, what organizational challenges have you faced and how have you overcame them as an employee?
Um, Seniority, basically. Seniority is like one of the biggest challenges. Even though you have an education and you might have some skill, but just the seniority is one of the most difficult things to deal with, because if you're just entering a position, you may have like all this experience like straight out of hand, but if you haven't been there for more than, I don't know how many years you want to say, um the chances of you getting chosen are very slim, because they want
Yeah.
someone that already knows the field. So it's like, as much as you want to continue growing and as fast as you want to know your role and position in it, it's going to be very difficult.
You have to pay your dues. So strategically, what do you plan to do? Like just keep working until you do get that opportunity, or do you see yourself shifting to another organization? Like what is your five-year plan?
I'm just going to continue applying to different positions, like within the VA, basically, because
Yeah.
again, it's just, I'm able to promote, even though it might not be within the same position. I'm still able to promote to something else. So I can be, I don't know, an assistant somewhere, a secretary, um, I don't know, like something even within the security field, just to get top security clearance. As long as I continue moving up and filling in the gaps just of that 1 year probation, then I'm set.
So what does that look like for you? Do you shift positions every 2 years, every 1 year? Like what's Felix's career timeline usually?
So I typically do every year. Um,
Wow, okay, millennial.
because again, I'm just trying to grow. I'm
Yeah,
trying to get some more, money to help the family at the same time.
right.
Pay back my dues from all the diapers my parents changed for me, and it's just that year mark for me. Is that after that year, once I hit my probation, all right, let me start looking into something new. Let me see what is it that I qualify, what my experiences can help me, as well as my degree, kind of, give me the leverage,
Right.
and go from there. But as of right now, I've taken a stop, because if they're gonna help me with my education, then
You can stay
I'll,
put for a little bit.
exactly, because at the end of the
Mhm.
day, it's gonna help me in the long run.
So I guess because you hear stories about people who job hop and employers judging that very harshly, or they're like, oh, this person's very likely to leave. Have you encountered that? Is it something you don't think about? Why it have like clearly you found success in it. So what guidance would you give people who are scared to job hop like that?
You know, with me, I I went in doing my role, like my task, what I was, what is it? What my job duty detailed, that's what I did. And if it didn't detail it, I'd still go above and beyond. I'm not over here, trying to kiss ass or anything like that. I'm just trying to make myself more knowledgeable for, let's say, another position. Is that like, oh, hey, have you had experience in, I don't know, helping an elderly cross the road? Oh yeah, I've done that like plenty of times. I I'll qualify for that one because it was out of my job detail, basically, job description. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. Job description, and I'm advancing myself every single time. So by the time I hit that year mark, I have like all this knowledge and things that I can put on my resume that weren't even part of my job description because I went out of my way for it. And by adding them, I'm not leaving on a bad term. I went in with everything and I left with everything.
You gave it your all.
So yep.
Mm. I
So
think
that
that's really great advice because I just had a conversation with someone. Your professional reputation, what does that mean to you? And coming up with your professional principles. Like anytime I encounter someone professionally, I want them to know that I'm well spoken, I present well, I smell good, I'm funny, charm, all these different things that you want people to leave when they meet you. I want people to know that the quality of the work that I'm submitting is crisp, pristine, clear, cohesive. Again, develop your, do you have professional principles? So why don't you list them for the people?
just put a smile on your face at all times. Be kind, generous, courteous to everybody. Again, listening. That's mainly
Yeah.
all I do. All I do is listen, like just listening to them. Um, going out of my way to help, learning new things. That's basically it.
How do you go about learning? Like, let's say, do you assess yourself professionally where you're like, I need to work on my presentation, I need to work on my skills? How often are you assessing yourself?
I'll be
And
honest with
how do
you,
you,
I've
huh?
never even thought of that.
No? How,
No,
okay,
I've
how do
never
you
thought
develop your
about that.
skills, your work skills?
I just
You're
find
just
my way
naturally
around it.
gifted, Felix?
No, I just
I
ask
love
for
it if
help.
you are.
I just ask for the help. If I don't know anything, I'll some people are very, I don't want to say like stuck up and think they know it all and don't want
Yeah,
to ask for help. I'm not one of those. If I don't know it, like, hey, Diana, can you help me out in this? Like, how
yeah.
can I fix this, or what can I do? What do I have to do in order to complete my task? And that's just me.
And every job you've taken, because it is eclectic, right, has helped you develop different skills. So that is a really interesting approach too, where it's like if you don't know anything and excuse me, you don't know where to start, then taking jobs that are going to help you develop and asking questions is always a great way to learn new skills, whether they're soft or hard skills. All in all, ask questions and be nice, right? So I
Go
would
for
like
it.
to, yeah, I would like to ask you, what is the best professional or job decision you ever made for yourself? Like that you feel like, oh, that was a great career move or a great thing I did to better my career prospects.
Um, when I started college, I worked as a tutor, like I said, and it was with the college bound program that I was initially part of within my high school
Mhm.
years. And thankfully, after building that report with the supervisor, the one that oversaw the program, he's like, "Do a year of school, come back to me, and we'll talk." I did my year. I went to him like, "Hey, as I like you told me to do my year, and I'm here." He's like, "Cool, yeah, exactly." Knocking on his door, he's like, "Hey, I'm here." Um, and he gave me that opportunity to learn what it is that college counselors do. Making sure these high school students are up to date with their grades, things that maybe classes that they need to retake. But the most knowledgeable thing about it was applying to Cal States, UCs, BAFSA, scholarships. And that's something that I do not regret because at the end of the day, my sisters went on to college
Yeah.
and they didn't do the 4 year university like me. They went into community college. But even then, being able to help them, um, being by their side instead of them struggling to, look for that assistance.
Telling your parents it is a good thing. You can
Yes.
still succeed. Go to community college.
Exactly. And that's what I told them. Like, look, you save a lot more money too. So
Yeah.
um, just having that information because I was the first one in the family to go to college again.
Mhm.
And I had other family members and friends that they're first generations too, or they had younger siblings. Like, hey, I never had that help. Can you help me? Yeah, I take about 5 minutes helping my sister with her FAFSA, and you're good. While others take up to like almost an hour. I'm on like, no, like I. Thankfully, with this information, I've been able to help out so many, friends and loved ones
Right.
apply to college and their FAFSA and, pursue their education. So that's one thing I'm forever grateful for.
You know what's nice, Felix, is you mentor other people. Were you ever mentored? Did you have a mentor? I mean, it sounds like this guidance counselor was really helpful, but was it just like at the moment? Do you have someone that you talk to that helps guide you?
Um, Not really. Just I guess my parents pushing me was more than anything. Um, I guess you could say my cousin's stepdad. Um, he was more of a like a role model father figure at the same time.
Yeah.
Besides my dad.
Right.
Um, but he had a career. He was like one of those that he was a law enforcement officer, and the sheriff, and he kind of guided me like on what it is that I need to do. What he would ask me questions that I at a young age that you don't really think about. And
Right.
so just by him asking me those questions, it kind of, opened up my mind and was like, oh, maybe I should start thinking about that. Maybe I should start doing that. And then, thinking about my consequences at the same time, pros and cons, basically, pros and cons, weighing out your
Right.
pros and cons and going from there. So,
No, you know why? And I spoke to this with my last guest, my mentor, Suzanne Rico, who I love, right? Everyone follow her on social media. My mom put me in a mentoring program when I was very young. I was 8 years old when I met her. And as an 8-year-old, you don't understand the influence someone has with just the conversations they're having with you. And this is one of my favorite as I grew up because I went through the little rocker phase for everyone that doesn't know me. And, I painted my nails, and my mom was like, she hated it. She's conservative Catholic, so she was never on board, right? But my mentor, who is a super cool career liberal woman, and I go to her house one day and she's like, very kindly, she's like, hey, I wouldn't recommend painting your nails. Like, you're going to get to a point in your life where people are going to look at your blue nails and they're going to judge you and they're going to like think of you differently. Maybe you should consider, switching up your style. And at first I was like, oh, she's being a hater. I was like, I just want to be like, she wants me to be plain. Like, I want to be an individual. This is how I express myself. And then eventually, it was a phase. It went away. But when I started dressing differently, and especially when I got into the workplace, because my first job was very cutthroat corporate America, I then understood what she was trying to say in that conversation in the kitchen, where it's like, you do get judged based off of the tiniest detail in the workplace that I was looking for, right? And sort of understanding hundreds of conversations, thousands of hours that I spent with her, how much that influenced me as I got older. Like, I think at one point, because I can talk about her all day, every day, she like corrected, like a word that I mispronounced. And I was like, she's being racist. I was like, I'm Mexican, of course I can't say the word. And then I personally, every time I saw her, I would practice the words that I said with an accent or that I didn't say correctly, so that when I met with her, I said it perfectly and she was never going to correct me. And now one of the biggest compliments I get is, wow, you're so well spoken. And I did it because as a kid, I didn't understand why she was correcting me so much. I just thought like, I was like, I'm Mexican, you're white, like what? But no, she was an anchor. She wanted to like, guide me in the right way of like, you want to work, you want to be a lawyer, you want to do whatever you want to do. People need to understand you. People need to know what you're saying. And so I do like that story because, again, as an adult, I didn't realize how much she impacted me. Like just being around her. And your uncle kind of sounds like he did the same thing for you because you majored in criminology. You were trying to be a cop, and she was the only person that I knew that was an educated woman, had a career, was a feminist. No man, was telling her anything. I aspired to be her. And at the same time, it was like such a great influence. Get a mentor, everyone. Or, if you realize that somebody does want to give you positive guidance, really retain it, because right now I would even consider us early in our careers. Like we still have so much to grow. If you have an executive that likes you or someone that owns a CEO, get under their shadow, ask questions. Have you taken the time to do that in any of the workplaces that you've been to?
um, no, I
You
haven't.
should. You should.
Well, just recently, I guess you could say just recently within this field, as like I have my supervisor who's the chief who oversees the whole department. She's kind of like, my not my role model, but mentor basically, like
Yeah.
kind of guiding me on what to do next, or what I can possibly pursue. And then again, I have my fellow colleagues that are already within that field and are like, hey, like this is what you're gonna get yourself into. This is what you're gonna foresee. So like just prepare yourself basically if this is the field that you want to go to. It's like we're not trying to scare you off, but
What does
you
prepare yourself mean, though? What did they tell you?
know. th- it's almost like the crisis response team. There's going to be difficult, very difficult moments, dark moments that you'll have be responding to, and you got to be mentally and emotionally prepared for all of these things. In which I guess I can say I'm already kind of prepared, but there
Right.
are things still that touch you because you kind of put yourself in their shoes and be like, what if that was my family? What if that was me? It's like,
Yeah.
how would my family be off? And go from there. So, but just mentally prepare yourself and emotionally prepare yourself. That's
So
more than anything.
so why did I create this platform, right? I have learned some of the best career guidance from my colleagues, from people who are in it, grinding it out, trying to like, get the next job, get the next salary. How helpful has that been? Like you talking to your colleagues at every job that you've had, like it does work well when you are networking within the same company, but be strategic. I'm not saying don't be friends and don't be nice to everyone, but some people are more career ambitious or career driven or more knowledgeable. If that's what you see yourself doing, pégate como chicle. Make sure that you are asking them questions. Let me take you out to coffee. Like coffee's on me. Like, give me 5 minutes of your time. Even if it's down the elevator. So, I love that. That's also an experience that you're sharing because as someone who I had Suzanne, I did, but she wasn't giving me a job, right? Like she helped guide me and she would look at my resume and if she could, she'd get me an interview. But I was alone in every single job that I applied to, got, and had to figure out how to be a good employee. Like I couldn't ask my mom, hey, how do I make an Outlook calendar? Like these are things that you have to
Learn
either
as you go.
learn as you go, fake it till you make it. Google everything, make
YouTube.
sure YouTube. Now TikTok, listen, I've TikTok so many things now. People just put in little 3-second videos. Let's go. Don't be on TikTok looking at, all these nonsense, be strategic. I'm just kidding. So I also want to talk like, right, because when you're talking to your colleagues, toxic work environments, office romances occur. Like, have you dealt with a toxic work environment? And how did you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, where I was as a health technician, again, like I was telling you earlier, there was just so much racism going on. And,
Mhm.
at first I was just like ignoring it because it wasn't just about me. It was about
Right.
like just all the Latinos that or referring me as a Hispanic. And I'm like, sorry, but I'm not Hispanic. I relate to a Latino. And so
Yeah.
like, whatever, they're all the same. It's like, no, to be honest, they're not because some have more, connection to the Latin community than the Hispanic community. But again, it's like to me it doesn't well to me because I'm Latin. I was like, if you were to call me Hispanic, I'm okay with it. I don't care because we're kind of like the same.
Yep.
So once they involved me in it, I was like, all right, now I can't take this anymore. It's like I need you guys to do something about it. If you
Right.
guys truly say that you guys are zero tolerance to racism, show me that you guys are because at this point you guys are going to lose an important employee. And I
Right.
kind of brought it up to my supervisor. Again, I was fed up at that point, and I had a sit down with that individual afterwards. And they're like, oh, what do you want us to do? Like, do you want to have a sit down with them? Do you want to write them up? Well, I'm like, I'll have a sit down with them. Like, let's talk it out. So I sat down with them and I was like, all right, what's your issue? Like, what do you have with me? And it's funny because this individual that was saying all these racist things was the one that trained me from the very beginning. So I'm just like, why are you hating me when you're the one that taught me all of these things? So like,
Right.
I'm not trying to be a shining star. I'm not trying to be the superstar. I'm just here to do my job, and I'm gonna
Mhm.
go out of my way to help this veteran with whatever he needs. And so like, if you're not gonna be doing it, I'm gonna do it. And
So
if
it
it
was
makes
a
you look bad,
colleague.
I'm sorry, huh?
It was a colleague. It wasn't like the vets you were helping. It was a colleague. Oh, that
Yeah.
changes everything. Did you feel like they handled it appropriately? Like,
Nah, she continued to proceed, to try to I don't know what she was trying to do or what she had against me, but she kept attacking me. Like I wrote up like 3 times or whatever. Eventually, she got to the point where she kind of started bringing all of my other Latin colleagues into the picture and was all like, "Oh no, at this point the Latins are taking over the community or the work field because they were so used to a black work field, basically a workspace,
Right.
and the supervisors were bringing in different cultures so that it was very diverse."
Right.
But I guess she didn't like it. She was an older lady too, so I can't say what she experienced in the past. So I don't know if that had to, had any effect as to what it is she's going through now. But eventually she tried to bring it up all the way to the director, all the way up there above like the chief and whatnot. And at the end of the day, the chief put her in her place, or the director put her in her place. Was like, do you see what all these names that you're naming, what they have in relation?
Right.
And then she's like, no, I was like, they're all Latins. And so like, do you see how this can, turn into racism and this and that? And she just stayed quiet. But
I think that is such an important story for Latinos, especially first gen going into corporate America, because you had a director that was willing to shut it down. They're like, this is not going to be tolerated. And I'm gonna be honest with everyone listening and with you too, Felix. Like my first job out of college, I think I was like 4 or 5 months without a job when I graduated. And then I landed this job. I needed a job, right? Very toxic. And I ended up working for someone that was very racist. And I joined the team and they were all scared of her. The environment was old boomer, sexist, racist, misogyny, everything that you remembered in the 50s, that company still unofficially practiced, right? And
yeah,
so when I got the position, the first day I was there, I was hired by the girl that was there before me. Very lovely Latina, had an accent, but she did her job well. She was beloved by everyone. I then have a meeting with my direct manager. It's my direct manager, then department chair, right? So he's like, I'm going to be transparent with you. When I was hiring for this position, I was told not to hire anyone with an accent. And I was in shock. I was like, hold on. Is she racist? And they were like, yeah, kind of. She had voted for someone. I'm not going to say who she voted for, but very like fanatic. So that kind of gave me an understanding. And I was disappointed in myself. I'm not going to lie, because I was like, I'm going to swallow my Hispanic, my Latina, upbringing pride and work for this racist because I need money. I found myself such a conflicted state because I'm a poli sci major. I was super politically active. I thought I had these principles, and then I sold out for $1 because I had to choose. Like, I need to pay my bills. I need to like help my family. And at this stage, my resume was garbage. I was happy to have a job, right? And so the difference with me and my company was the CEO was the same racist boomer. Like he was an elitist pretending to be a progressive, right? And so I was like, just a year. I'm just gonna suck it up for a year. Will I ever? To this day, I hate that man. If I ever make it, I'll make sure he gets fired. I don't know. But I wish I would have done the glass ceiling. I wish I would have reviewed the company, because my experience was filled with racism, misogyny. Like every person of color, if you weren't an executive, you were sitting in a cubicle. You were treated very differently. You were yelled at. And it's disappointing, but the reason I share this story is because you are going to encounter racism. I thought I was in this California bubble. Oh, there's no racism here. I'm educated. You're going to encounter it. Trust me. So thank you for sharing that.
and I never in my life that I think I'd encounter it. To be honest, is like you said,
Yeah.
California is like it's very diverse and this and that. Is like everyone gets along, but in reality, it's unexpected. To be honest, it really is unexpected.
It
Um,
is.
when I worked in Penny Lane, all I worked with was black females and males, and which they're like the dopest people ever.
Yeah.
We created this bond, and I was just like, oh, I love this place. But it wasn't the people that drove me out of that location. It was just the stress, basically. But if I could work with them alongside them again, I would.
Yeah, and that's another, I think, area that when you get into corporate America, finding your people, and your people don't necessarily mean, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm finding another brown person, I'm finding another black person. People that are inclusive. I know now it's like thrown around, oh, diversity and inclusion. Does your company really mean that? Do they really stand behind it? Is everyone you're encountering truly not racist, not a bigot? Like, I think now, ask me if I would ever work for a racist company again. Never, right? Like now, I feel like I have more of a career and my own personal principles and standing, where it's like I'm no longer fresh out of college with nothing on my resume. Once you can get to that place, make sure you solidify what your truth is and what you are willing and not willing to put up with. Ask me if a CEO does something misogynistic, I am reporting them instantly. I don't care who it is, right? I recommend that to you at every stage if you can, because sometimes you do need the money. You have to suck it up. But then afterwards, report them, get on
Yeah,
TikTok and expose. I'm
get
just
all the
kidding.
followers.
Right. Explosive. Do those Yelp reviews. I'm just kidding. So, and then talking about toxic work environments, this is a question that I like asking everyone that comes on. Have you experienced a breakup or a toxic relationship when you are working, while you're working? When? Is it a yes or no?
In my previous jobs, I have.
Okay.
This is
Okay.
this is like way before even started a full time job. Basically, it was like a part time gig. I
Okay.
mean, there's just this girl, very attractive and whatnot, and we went out here and there, but one day my supervisor left me in charge of the store because she had to go out, and me being me, when they put me in charge because I'm responsible for the store, you know, I set myself in a different way. And I'm asking her to do these things, but I guess my tone of voice was just too aggressive, even though I didn't mean it to sound aggressive. And since then, she was acting very differently. She'd be asking me like, "Why are you screaming at me? Why are you this?" I'm like, "Oh no, if you're gonna be one of these that can't, work
Sensitive,
alongside
so
this with the tone," I was like, "I'm sorry." It's like this isn't gonna work out. So yeah.
So no, I guess what I'm asking is like, have you been through a toxic relationship and you still have to do your job? Or like a toxic, like you're fighting with your family or something, you're going through like emotional distress, or like your girl is like, why aren't you texting me? You didn't text me on your lunch break. How, as a guy, right, have you dealt with that? Because as a woman, I've cried in the cubicle once or twice. Like, I'm sure you aren't crying, but how do you focus? How do you focus? You have to focus and work. How did you do it? I mean, have you done that?
I I just we've had some family issues here.
Yeah.
I won't really go into much detail about it, but what I do here at home, I don't take it to work with me. Same
Yeah.
vice versa. I just keep it within myself. I guess with me growing up was, keep it all to yourself and don't really
Yeah.
talk about the type of thing. So
So you don't
that's
have
what I
work
do.
friends. Do you make work friends? You do. You
Yeah,
do, because they're helping you get jobs, but you're just keeping it professional.
correct.
Okay, well, that's nice. How have you managed as a man? This is an interesting question. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but dating now, right? Are you single? Tell the crowd. Are you single? You dating?
No, I'm dating right now.
Okay. So now I know men really don't want to date in the workplace, but it's like, where do you meet people? I mean, now there are apps, right? But are you scared as a man, right, to date in the workplace? Because then, if they don't like you, hashtag time's up, hashtag me too. Like, just kidding. I'm a feminist, everyone, I promise.
The one I'm with right now is we work together, so we
Oh,
don't have any
workplace
issues.
romance.
So
Okay.
yeah.
How did that, were you not scared? I mean, how did you approach it? How about that? Not that we're trying to give dating advice to how to pick up someone at work, but you do have to be a little more delicate when you are trying to be romantic with someone in the workplace. Like, did you wait for her to like kind of show interest, or were you interested?
No, I was interested. I kind of, pressed her buttons, little in there, threw little clues here and there, so. And then from there it's kind of like, she started getting feelings, and we kind of set up boundaries while we're at work. This is what we're going to be focusing, because we're not trying to bring our relationship into work. If we're
Right.
having issues, we'll deal with it after work, but during work, we're gonna we're gonna focus on work. We're not trying to bring attention to us, because people are already targeting us, like, so we don't want any more attention.
Of course. I mean, I'm sure that's difficult with like, not that you guys are fighting and you guys are toxic or anything, but I would imagine if we're fighting, y me hiciste enojar, like, seeing you at work, just like really is gonna like, I'm gonna make sure none of your papers are stable. I'm just kidding. You know,
I'll,
different workplace
I'll be like,
issues.
¿te calmas o te calmo? Tranquilo.
It's like, I'm not getting you a coffee during my coffee break. Like,
Right.
calm down.
Well, you
Do you
want
want
that breakfast sandwich? Keep acting like that. You're not gonna get anything.
Yeah, you know what is so funny? And I think I always bring this up. It's that meme of like, oh, this girl's crying because her boyfriend just broke up with her. And it's like a Burger King. And the manager's like, well, that's why you shouldn't check your phone while you're on the clock. And it's just like, that is the best advice you can give someone that is going through like a toxic, or, just issues at work and stuff like that. So, no, I think it's interesting because, like, my mom, I just recently shared this with you, like, she's sick, right? She se enfermó tantito, and I'm not gonna lie, like, it was very hard to navigate working and experiencing that, because as an adult, you get to a point where now you're the caregiver, you're helping your parents, right? And our parents worked hard for us, and now I'm gonna work hard for you. And like, I'm tired, Felix. Like, I'm tired, but you do have to force yourself to just push through it. I think me 5, 6 years ago would have been more frantic, crying on the verge of just like stress ridden, anxiety, versus now it's just like, just go. What do I have to do? Let me get on a project, let me complete it, let me do it, and let me reshift my focus to something productive. Productivity will then blank out your brain, right? So that's the only advice I can give there. I mean, it's a fun question, because as people who are working professionals, like as friends, I'll be like, dude, my ex is horrible, blah, blah, blah. But at work, it's awkward. And crying in front of the CEO is
It's not the best view.
yeah. Okay. Another fun question that I wanted to ask you is like, because again, it comes with dating in the workplace, right? So I didn't because I wasn't a toxic guy or anything like that. But
Hey, that's
people
what they all
were
say.
like, I know, right? Let me preface this. I was not a toxic person. But when you are in the workplace, or like as a woman, you expect your man to be like, oh, why didn't you tell her you had a girlfriend, right? Or like, why aren't you telling all of these people that you have a girlfriend? They're being too chatty. And so I got into the workplace. And this is my favorite story to tell. So I'm going to use your time to sort of share this story. So this is a president. His name was Stephen Chang. Very handsome, cosmopolitan, like model, right? He was like 6 foot something, good smile, CEO, whatever, right? So I am working as a receptionist, admin assistant, and every day he's bringing me a little gift because he was the CEO of the World Trade Center, right? So me trae un regalito. And every day he just leaves it. He's like, that's for you. And I'm like, he's so handsome. At the time I had a boyfriend, right? And I didn't say anything because I'm like, oh, I don't want to like mix my workplace and my personal life. And it's like day 6, and it's 6 days of like little gifts because international people are like bringing him, things. On day 7, it's a beautifully wrapped box, and he's standing over my desk, and he's like, here, I want to watch you open it. And I was just like, oh, I'm like, oh, thank you, Steven. I was like, this is so sweet. And so I'm opening it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so nice. What if it's jewelry? Am I supposed to tell him I have a boyfriend? Like, when do I tell him, like, I have a boyfriend, right? So I'm trying to hype myself up to like actually say it, because I was like, I'd expect my man to say it, right? But he proceeds to say, it's like, yeah, I was gifted this by one of the Japanese diplomats, but how do I tell him I don't have a girlfriend or a wife? And I was like, oh, he's hitting on me for sure. I was like, okay, I have to tell him, yeah, I have a boyfriend. And then I was like, I was opening the box, right? I was so nervous because I was like, it was on the tip of my tongue. And he's like, yeah, how do I tell him, I have a husband? Oh my God.
Wow.
I almost made a fool of myself because, one, I don't have gaydar, right, whatsoever. Let the public know. And two, he's so dang handsome. And three, it's like, I'm not gonna tell an executive like I have a boyfriend like the first day of my job. Like, I don't know. That's like so weird. So for you, anyway, it's just a funny story. But for you as a guy, like, are you telling women like, oh, like, I have a girlfriend, or like when you have a girlfriend, like, how do you approach workplace relationships with your female colleagues?
Well, I just keep it professional with them. And so, like, even though they ask me, I'll in front of my girl, I'll be like, no, I'm not. And
She's probably boiling. I'm just kidding.
no, but again, it's because then they're gonna start, picking and picking and picking, and
Right.
that's something that I hate. Like, I don't want to be going through that, and I'm not gonna tell you. So, best solution to that is I'm single. But in reality, my girl's right next to you.
Right. You're single, but you're respectful. You're single because sometimes the workplace drama just isn't worth it. And I completely understand that. Although justice for your girl. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I think that thank you for indulging me in answering these questions. But I do want to segue back into your professional development process. So you have you have a career trajectory. You want to keep moving up. Do you know what that means for you? Like, do you want to be a CEO? Do you want to be the president one day? Like, what does that long-term career goal, and what do you do? What are you planning to get there? Like, how are you planning your life? I know you're getting your master's, but how are you planning all of that?
I'm just living it day by day. Like, I'll be honest with
It's
you,
working for you too.
I never. Well, growing up, I said I wanted to work for the government. I just didn't know in what. I
Right.
managed to get in it. Now that I'm in it, but even before then, it's just for me, it's a day by day basis. I'm not trying to stress myself out more than I already am to, kind of plan my future, my career. Is I
Right.
like what life throws at me. If I'm able to fight it or, open the door to it to new opportunities, then I'll do it. I'm I'm just gonna, again, day by day basis. That's just my motto.
I love that. Now, well, it work. No, I retract that statement. It works for some people and it doesn't work for others. So
Right.
I'll say, if you, not that it's luck, but if you're fortunate enough that that strategy has helped and your career is blossoming, live day by day. But if it's not and you're stagnant in a bad way, reassess and have, a long-term career and figure that plan out. So my next question to you, or I guess if you would assess yourself, even though you say you don't assess yourself, what is your biggest weakness? And let me see. Yeah, like, how would you say you make it work to your benefit? Or like, do you let people know, like, oh, I'm a bad speller? Like, what does that look like for you?
My biggest weakness,
You don't
I
have
don't
any.
know. I don't know. I probably do, but I don't know. I don't really pay attention to it because I'm always asking for help regardless. So what would I say in an interview? And like literally in a job interview when they
Yeah,
ask you,
well,
"Well,
yeah.
what's your weakness?" I'll just be like, I don't know, my lack of writing skills, I guess you could say. I'll just say something like that, but again, it's just half-assing it just
Yeah,
to
of course. Would you say you have any daily habits that help you be a better professional? Like, are you an avid reader? What do you do that
I
works for
hate
you?
reading. I hate reading, but I know I should
Podcast.
be
You listen to
reading.
podcast. You volunteer. I think that's fantastic.
I just listen to music. And so like I wake up in the morning, you know, with the positive mindset. Just let's get this day over with. You know, let's hope this day is good and go from there. Um, Negative energy attracts negative energy.
Right. Yeah. So as I think this question is very unique and it segues a little bit away from what the platform is, but as someone that's in the social work field and you're Salvadorian, I need to ask you, like, what are your thoughts on everything that the president is doing with like MS-13 and just everything that's going on in the country? Because you're going back very frequently. Like, do you see yourself at one point going back and helping your community in El Salvador, or what are your thoughts? Why don't you share
Well,
that?
I've actually talked about my dad about that. It's like, hey, like dad, like within our little, village, city, pueblito, whatever you want to call it, like
Mhm.
what can we do to help the community grow? And so like not many people know about it. It's like a little hidden thing, but I wanna help them,
Yeah,
bring up their education, housing, little things, parks or something like that, their soccer field. Like, what is it that we can do to help them? But in the long term, eventually, I do want to, somehow not move, but continuously visit. Because this president, Jesus Christ, I love this guy. He's literally locking up everybody left and right,
I'm
like
also in
no
love with him.
justice. Yeah, and I'm just like, he's by far one of the best presidents that they've had,
Right.
and he's made a lot of positive changes to it, which is good, and it's attracting more tourism than it's ever had before. People are feeling a lot safer. I mean, I go every 4 years. I started going since the age of 4, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. What am I now? 29. So I don't know, like 25. The last time, well, actually, I went last year.
You just
And
turned 30. What are you talking about? 29.
don't add one more. Don't add one more.
Okay.
And then what's it called? I went last year, and it's just a lot safer. The environment's different from the last time that I had been there, and people are walking around happily, not having to worry about you know
Get the
seeing a
sequestration.
dead body or anything like that, or being trafficked or killed, mugged. It's just a lot safer. So
That's beautiful. And you know what? It's so nice to see someone in a Latin American country really care about their people. I personally, as a Mexican, I think that's the same direction we have to take. But the history and the corruption, and it's deep rooted. That problem isn't going to be solved just like, getting rid of all the maleantes or whatever because the cops are corrupt. There's a lot that goes into what needs to be done to fix Mexico, but it's really beautiful to see El Salvador, flourish in that way through one person. Like, it's literally linked to one person that makes that social impact. And as someone who we're both in the field of community engagement, community outreach, you go into the field to help people, to help your community. If one day we can all go back to Mexico and help the society, help the villages, help everyone, the impact you can make, one person can make an impact. You just have to reach for the stars, right? So
yeah,
to end this wonderful chat, I'd love to share, I guess your best career advice that you've received at any point in your journey, or you can name a few or one, but something that you feel really helped guide you that would help. If somebody else heard this, it's going to help them.
what is it? There's just so many. I can't even think of one like off of the top of my head. I really can't. But one thing that they just say is just continue pushing. Like, there'll be a brick wall right in front of you, but all you gotta do is just continue pushing it until it falls. Make your own path. Don't follow others. That's one of the most important thing that I enjoy. Is like, it's a future for you and not for anybody else. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, they're not paying your bills.
Right.
So
No, I think that's wonderful. That's a great closer. Thank you so much, Felix, for being a wonderful guest. And I want to thank all of the listeners. This was Professionals on the Grind with Felix Flores. Thank you so much.